Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating argument presented by the hosts of the Physics to God series. For centuries, people have looked at the sheer, mind-boggling complexity of plants, animals, and the human body and argued, well, this incredible biological design absolutely must be the work of an intelligent creator. But modern science has thrown some massive challenges at that specific idea. So where does that leave us? Well, let's dive into it. Because what the source material argues is that if you're looking for evidence of an intelligent cause, the classic biological design argument is actually not your strongest case anymore. Instead, they argue that the fine-tuning of fundamental physics offers a far more convincing, structurally sound argument. So, we're going to objectively break down exactly why they believe physics succeeds right where biology stumbles. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll hit 1, the classic design argument, 2, evolution's blind watchmaker, 3, the origin of life problem, 4, why physics is different, 5, the foundation of biology, and finally 6, 3 major advantages. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the classic design argument. You know, what's really fascinating here is just how far back this intuition goes. The hosts cite an 11th century Spanish thinker, Rabbi ibn Pacuda. He used this great analogy: if you saw a water wheel irrigating a field, perfectly assembled with each part serving a specific, useful purpose, you'd be a fool to think it just came together by chance, right? You would know a craftsman built it. And centuries later, in 1802, William Paley famously updated this analogy to a watchmaker. If you find a pocket watch lying on the ground, its intricate gears point directly to a designer. Historically, living creatures exhibited the absolute greatest degree of complexity humans had ever seen. So naturally, thinkers pointed to biology as the ultimate proof of a conscious designer. Moving on to Section 2, evolution's blind watchmaker. Then, in 1859, Charles Darwin presented a major challenge to that classic design argument with the theory of evolution. He proposed that complex life didn't actually need a conscious designer. It could develop from simpler forms through heredity, mutation, and survival. The hosts use a really helpful analogy to explain the mechanics here. Imagine an insect that randomly mutates to look slightly more like a leaf. This new camouflage helps it hide from predators. Over time, that specific insect survives longer, reproduces more, and passes on that leaf-like trait. Eventually, you get an incredibly complex, highly adapted insect that looks perfectly designed but was actually just molded by the harsh pressures of its environment. And it's because of this natural selection process that biologist Richard Dawkins famously refers to evolution as a blind watchmaker. It's an unintelligent, unguided process that is nonetheless entirely capable of bringing about the remarkable biological complexity that William Paley used to think absolutely required a conscious designer. So it seemingly explains away the need for an intelligent cause in biology entirely. Which brings us to Section 3, the origin of life problem. Now, here is the crucial caveat the hosts point out. Evolution only explains how life changes and adapts once it already exists. It relies completely on heredity. But where did that first hereditary material even come from? In 1953, Watson and Crick discovered the DNA double helix, the incredible self-replicating molecule that literally holds the blueprint for life. But discovering DNA didn't eliminate the design problem at all. It really just pushed it back one step. It's kind of like finding out a car was built by a robotic assembly line instead of a human. You still have to explain who programmed the incredibly complex robot in the first place. Evolutionary theory inherently cannot shed light on how the very first replicating molecule emerged from lifeless chemistry. To try and solve this origin of life problem without an intelligent designer, biologists propose what's called the multi-planet solution. And it relies on this absolutely staggering number: an estimated 100 billion potentially hospitable planets in the universe. Think about it like this. If the odds of life emerging by chemistry alone are 1 in a billion, how do you actually win that lottery? Well, there are 2 ways. First, you buy way more tickets. If there are 100 billion planets, that is a massive amount of chances for life to randomly spark. Second, you change the rules, so you require fewer correct numbers. Biologists hypothesized that before complex DNA existed, there was a much simpler, easier to form replicating molecule. So by combining an unimaginable number of planets with a simpler first replicator, biologists argue that given enough chances, even highly improbable life could emerge purely by luck. All right, Section 4, why physics is different. So, why do the hosts argue that fundamental physics is a better case for design than biology? They highlight several key differences, starting right here. In biology, it's entirely reasonable to theorize about evolution because we actually have a fossil record. We can literally dig into the earth and observe that species were not fixed. They evolved over millions of years. But when it comes to physics, the fundamental constants of nature, like the exact strength of gravity, are fixed. There are no physics fossils. There is absolutely zero empirical evidence that the laws of nature ever went through stages of evolution or changed over time.
Furthermore, evolution absolutely requires a selection pressure. Remember our leaf insect? It evolved because predators in its external environment ate the bugs that didn't blend in. But physics applies to the universe itself, and the universe is, by definition, everything that exists. There's no external environment. There are no predator universes putting pressure on our universe to adopt its laws of gravity. The whole concept of natural selection just doesn't mathematically or logically transfer over to fundamental physics.
And what about biology's multi-planet solution? Well, the hosts point out that invoking billions of chances only works in biology because we have actually observed other planets through our telescopes. It is an empirical fact that they exist. But to explain away the perfectly fine-tuned constants of physics by saying, well, maybe there are billions of other universes with different laws, and we just got lucky in ours, requires relying on the multiverse theory. And unlike planets, other universes are completely unverified and unobservable. The hosts argue that positing infinite unseen universes just to invoke chance is not empirically justified at all. It's an argument from ignorance. Section 5, the foundation of biology. Let's take a step back and look at the scientific ladder. Biology is not a fundamental science. The behavior of DNA and living organisms is entirely derived from chemistry, the interactions of atoms and complex molecules. In chemistry, well, that is entirely derived from physics, the fundamental constants of nature. Think about it. In order to even have the chance to evolve life, you need stable atoms, you need complex molecules like carbon and water, and you need planets and stars to exist. The crucial point the source makes is this. Even if you completely accept the multi-planet solution and the theory of evolution, biology still has a massive prerequisite. None of those things can exist unless the fundamental constants of physics are already perfectly fine-tuned. And this brings us to a really powerful metaphorical conclusion drawn by the hosts. Evolution might be a blind watchmaker, sure, but the physical laws of the universe are the workbench, the tools, and the metal. The blind watchmaker itself had to be perfectly fine-tuned and set up in advance just to have the ability to blindly make watches. Biology is entirely downstream of the fine-tuning of physics. Finally, Section 6, 3 major advantages. Let's quickly summarize the source's argument on why physics provides a much stronger case for an intelligent cause than biology. First, unlike biological species, there are absolutely no fossils or evidence that the laws of physics evolved or adapted over time. Second, biology can rely on luck because we literally observe billions of planets, but physics cannot rely on luck without inventing completely unobservable multiverses. And third, physics is fundamental. Biology relies entirely on the precise fine-tuning of physical laws just to have a universe where chemistry and life are even possible in the first place. But of course, this leads us to one ultimate question, one the hosts themselves pose. If an intelligent cause perfectly fine-tuned the fundamental laws of our universe, then who fine-tuned the fine-tuner? Doesn't that just push the exact same problem back again? Well, the hosts argue no, teasing a future philosophical exploration of a simple God with no parts, an entity that is intrinsically not subject to fine-tuning. It is a massive mind-bending puzzle for sure. One that completely shifts how we look at the fundamental nature of reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this really helps structure these complex ideas for you.